For those of you who haven't joined Parker Live before, just to give you a little background, the goal is really just to bring a little bit of good into the world. We're hoping that all of you watching leave feeling recharged and maybe even learn something new. So today we have the founder of Whole Assistant from Denver, Colorado, Annie Croner. Hi, Annie.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Christina.
I'm excited to have you here. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. It's a sunny day here in Colorado, so that's always good.
I'm jealous of you. A little gloomy here in Seattle. I was wondering if you could start off by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I am the founder of Whole Assistant, as Christina mentioned earlier, just a minute ago. And I am an executive assistant and have been an executive assistant or an assistant in some capacity for 18 years. I started Whole Assistant a couple of years ago with the intention of really just writing about what we do as assistants, and it's kind of morphed more into how to take better care of ourselves because as assistants we juggle all the things and we manage all the people and um, and oftentimes we can just end up letting ourselves fall by the wayside. So my emphasis is really in productivity and self-care and kind of the intersection of both of those ideas or both of those concepts.
I
So
love it. Well, I'm a huge fan of your blog. I love it. I've loved it since the beginning. And I know today we are talking a lot about self-care. And I was curious, as we were talking before this started, you had a really interesting, definition of self-care and what that means to you. And I was wondering if you could share that.
absolutely. So self-care for me is intentionally creating a life we love by integrating what gives us relentless joy. That's not just instant gratification, but deep, true joy. Um, and also integrating what gives us relentless joy, um, healthy habits, and safeguarding the true self. And those three integrated all together can be an amazing package for self-care and creating a life you love. So that's how I define self-care for myself and for my entire platform actually of Whole Assistant.
I love that. And one of the things I've been thinking about is as assistants, and then of course others who are incredibly other centered, we tend to put our needs last, and that's often at the detriment of our own health. And I know you've learned how to improve this area of your life, and I was just wondering if you can share like how you do this.
Sure, it's not easy because I think as people who would love to give to other people, we constantly seek to give, and so I've just been really mindful of like what is going to actually fill me up, what is going to energize me, what is going to you know like make me feel alive and feel like I'm contributing in the world and also like feel grounded in myself. And so I've created some habits already and I've got goals to create others that help me manage my life better and manage myself better and bring me peace. For example, like I try to meditate regularly and I also do something called a thought download, which is my brain is just going and going and going all the time. And every morning when I wake up, I will just write everything out that's on my mind so that I can see externally like the thoughts that are going on in my head and I can actually analyze them a bit better when I see them on paper. Also, I like to go running. So I will, make it possible. In order to make it possible for me to run, I've got to get up early because my day starts and I'm taking care of everybody else. And so I will set my alarm to get up early to do that. And then in the evenings, I'll actually form my evenings around that goal. So instead of staying up late and setting myself up for failure in that way, I will make sure I get to bed to get enough rest. It really is about systematizing those things that will set you up for the life you love. And so I've tried to do that some. And there was a certain point in my life where I wasn't doing that at all. And I have this whole dramatic story around it that I won't share with you today. But if you're interested and want to follow me on my blog, I'm going to be going into that more. Um, and I'm just so passionate about it now because I'm a new mom as well. So like, not only do I have a rigorous work life, I also have a rigorous home life. Now more with Sammy, my little baby boy who's 6 months. So it's just, I really have to be intentional about it. And sometimes I notice that it falls by the wayside. And so then I have to like, no, I need to actually like bring myself back to taking care of myself a bit better and a bit more, especially with all that's going on in our world with COVID and all of that. So that was a long-winded answer, but there you have it, Christina.
No, I love it. Well, and I know, you talked about systematizing everything, and I was just curious, if you have any like tips about that just for people in general, because it sounds like you have all these, cool practices, with your thought downloads. That's an interesting one that I'm definitely going to, circle back to. I want to know more about that. But I was curious about these systems and, I guess how you got there and if you can share any just tips about that.
Yeah, so I found like, and actually I think this is a result, this is as a result of being in our line of work as an executive assistant, like that in order for things to get done regularly, I had to create systems around them in order to make them habits. And so for me in my job, this looks like every Monday morning I get in and I check A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
But in my personal life and in my self-care world, this for me looks like I want to be healthy first and foremost. That's one of my top values is health. So then I need to build a system around that for myself and like, how am I going to make myself happy? And so I found a method of like exercise that I enjoy doing, which is running and dancing. I also love to dance, which is just so much fun. Social dance, by the way, not just like boogie in my bedroom, but social
That's
dance.
what I was thinking, actually.
um, so then it's like, okay, so how can I incorporate running into my regular routine? And so I try to make it up 3 or 4 mornings a week to run. Now with a baby, that's been more difficult because he is just now beginning to sleep through the night. And so prior to him sleeping through the night, like getting up in the morning to run was not an option. It wasn't appealing. And and so it really is just about finding times throughout my day to actually like do yoga or exercise and then sticking to a plan. So I map out my entire week in a calendar and
Oh, you
all the
do?
things, yeah, I do, and all the things I'm going to do. And I actually block out time for random things that come up. Sometimes like I'll block out a block of time every day for random things that come up for my executive or whatnot. But that helps me stay on track with making sure that I'm taking care of myself. And then I think the biggest piece of this is actually honoring the plan that you make, because we can make plans all day long, but unless we actually honor ourselves by honoring the plan, then it won't like then we won't be actually taking action that we want to take to get us where we want to go. So that's my biggest tip, is to just like come up with a plan that's maybe malleable, especially if you're like us and you have to cater to someone else in your day job and throughout your day. But then stick with that plan and honor yourself by making sure that you are, doing the yoga in the afternoon that you want to do, or going for the run in the morning that you'd like to do. Those would be my biggest steps, my biggest tips for our watchers today.
I love that. And I love that about like honoring your plan. I mean, because it is easy to, put time in your calendar, but then just schedule over and just overlook it. And so I really like that. And I was curious more about your thought downloading. So is that kind of like journaling? I was really curious about that.
Yes, so I follow this gal. Her name is Brooke Castillo, and she's got the Life Coach School podcast. Like that's the name of her podcast, and I follow her, and I love her work. And I'm like, I've totally drank the Kool-Aid there. And she talks about doing thought downloads as a way to bring awareness to your thoughts. So your thoughts create your feelings, which then in turn create your actions, which then creates your results. So you definitely want to like watch what you're thinking, because you want to make sure you're acting from a place that you want to be acting from, so you can create the results you want. And so a thought download is a great way to get clear on what you're actually thinking, and then kind of break down the thoughts further and analyze them and be like, oh, I want to replace this thought with this more productive thought instead of, or man, I noticed that I've been talking to myself so negatively lately. Like I find myself sometimes writing like, I'm so stupid. why did I do that? Why did I do this? Or why did I do that? And so like, it's one of my self-care goals is to actually is a boundary. It's the safeguarding piece of my definition, and that like setting healthy boundaries with myself. And so I now know that like anytime I catch myself beating myself up, I'm like, no, I'm not going to allow myself to do that. Like I'm only going to allow myself to speak kindly to myself. And so that's how I found the thought download so helpful, is that it actually brings awareness to some of the thoughts we're thinking.
I
Because we
love that.
yeah.
I'm just
So
thinking at a higher level. Like I'm thinking about like my journaling, and I do kind of beat myself up a little bit. So that's nice to like recognize how you're talking to yourself.
yeah.
That's really interesting. And I do want to talk about Sammy because I know you're a new mom, and I'm curious, how he's adorable, by the way. I'm curious, how have you learned, how to juggle everything being a new mom? I know, with work, you have so many people in your life that you help out. And of course, making time for your own needs. I'm just wondering how you've learned how to juggle everything with this change.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting because I had Sammy back in December and then COVID happened right at the end of my maternity leave.
Mhm.
So I went from staying home with him to now working from home with him. Um, and it's not been easy. It's just, and I'm not going to lie, like, I'm not going to say, oh, it's been peachy, like amazing. It has been amazing spending more time with him because he's such a happy, joyful baby. But it has also been tricky. And so it's just a matter of taking it 1 minute at a time sometimes, 1 day at a time, really like figuring out when is important for me to have quiet time so I can take a call versus what calls he can join me on, and I think prior to trying to manage all of those things, I was really self-conscious about how Sammy would affect my work life. And one of the amazing benefits of working from home with my son is that I've actually kind of had to let a lot of my care about what other people think about my situation go. And I've also been met with just so much grace and like understanding and compassion that I think my concern was silly to begin with. And so I think it's just really about taking it day by day, minute by minute, and really like taking a step back and asking yourself what is important for that moment, you
No, I
know?
love that. Well, I'm glad you've been able to let other people's opinions go, and you haven't been people respond to you with grace. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, so do you feel like at this point in your life you found like a balance that allows for enough self-care? Do you feel like you have that balance for yourself?
I feel like it's a constant conversation with myself, and it's a constant, I don't want to say struggle, but it's a constant conversation I'm having with myself. Like, am I getting enough me time? Am I getting enough rejuvenation time? Am I taking good care of myself? Am I allowing myself to feel everything I'm feeling and not like try and numb with something, And that's which has been really tempting, I think, for all of us during COVID to pop online and just do some shopping or have that extra
Yep.
glass of wine that maybe we
Yes.
probably shouldn't have.
Done it.
I think we all have. Like it's just kind of the world we're living in. And so I think it's a constant conversation. It's a constant thing that I'm bringing up to myself to really make sure that I have what I need in order to thrive.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you're being very gentle with
I try to be.
yourself. And I wanted to congratulate you. I know you just became a certified life coach. So
Woohoo!
I know that's so exciting. I was curious, not a lot of people know what that is. I was curious if you could share, what that is and why you decided to pursue that credential.
Yes, I am so excited about this. So, um, what a life coach does is that they help, they walk the journey with you and they help you work on specific goals. So they can help you work on anything from career goals to personal goals to I know of a gal who's a style coach. Like she got her life coach certification and she coaches in styling. Um, and basically what a life coach does is he or she will get at the root of what it is that you want from life, and then help you create a plan for for actually fulfilling those dreams and those goals you have. And how coaching works is we just ask a lot of really great questions so that we guide you towards your own solutions, which is excellent because the last thing like me as a life coach, I as a life coach want for my clients is for them to feel obligated to take my advice or to take anything on that doesn't feel genuine to them. So basically, it's a process of guiding and guiding people towards their own solutions and their own like way of life that they really want to live. And I got the credential to answer your second part of your question because I really want to help women and in particular executive assistants with their self-care. And I really want to help the women I work with develop their own self-care plan that they feel good about executing and they feel excited about implementing. So
I'm excited about that, Annie. That's awesome. And we're actually almost out of time. I wanted to, touch base with you because there was one blog post of yours that I really, really love. It's about sort of like shifting your mindset around time and productivity. Because like when I think about self-care, a lot of times I go back to, oh, I don't have the time. Like I just won't, I'll skip exercise and all that because I just don't have the time. And I know, you talked about like the formula of the way we usually think about like productivity in terms of time, and then shifting that. And I was curious if you could, talk about that a little bit.
sure. So I think most people think of productivity as time plus effort equals productivity. And actually, and that's, I think we have been trained to think about productivity that way. Like if I get to the office and I work 8 hours and I exert a lot of efforts, then I have been productive. And when in actuality, I made this mindset shift a while ago, and I shifted from that model of like effort plus time equals productivity to the amount produced or and the quality produced equals productivity. So if I've got my key objectives for the day and they only take me 4 hours to get through, I'm not going to feel terrible about my day. I'm not going to feel like I feel bad because I didn't like exert all this effort for 8 hours. I'm going to feel really great because I hit all my key objectives for the day and I produced something and I actually have something to show for what I produced. And I think this translates really well to self-care because we can actually look at our time and we can actually look at our day and we can work in self-care practices that work for us and not feel guilty or bad about it because we produced so much through our day, and we know we're going to produce so much during our day of quality work and something to show for it. So yeah, those are a couple of shifts. And actually like the intersection of productivity and self-care, I'm super passionate about because good self-care practices are also good productivity practices. There's a lot of
Yeah.
overlap.
No, that absolutely makes sense. Well, I love just thinking about that different way of, thinking about productivity. So that was really helpful to share. Was there anything that you wanted to share before we, sign off for the day? Do you have any, other self-care strategies you want to share?
I think, especially during this time, I think it's really important that we get quiet with ourselves and we actually allow ourselves to feel through what is going on in the world, to actually process those emotions, and actually feel them. Because right now there's just so much going on in our world, and there's a lot of like real reason to feel heartache and sadness. And so actually allowing ourselves to process through those is so healthy. Actually allowing ourselves to feel the depths of those and to process through them instead of to avoid them is just so healthy. And I would encourage us all to take a step back and take a beat and take a minute and sit with ourselves.
I love that. That's a good final thought. Well, thank you so much for being here, Annie, and sharing your knowledge and your time. I really appreciate it. Um, I would love if all of you want to connect with Annie. Her website is wholeassistant.com, and you can also find her on LinkedIn under Annie Croner.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.